Who's speaking this chapter? Do you remember? Kapila Dev. Who's he talking to? His mama. Does she have a name? You don't remember his name? Kapila Dev's mother? Devahuti. Correct. Let's see, 22. Okay. And here's, do you remember anything from your classes yesterday? What preceding talk was about? Let's hear a few things.
Well, I remember some points Kalakanta made about the three Vishnus, because it was mentioned briefly. One of the Vishnus was like, their name was there, I think. Also, we talked about anger.
Anger.
And yeah, I forgot the verses per se. I remember talk about anger and how exercising our anger can actually satisfy us.
See, I wonder what started. Anyway, 17. Impelled by the mode of passion, are full of anxieties, always prepared for sense gratification, for uncontrolled senses. Then 18 was, such persons are called trivarkika, because they're interested in three elevating processes. 19 was, such persons are condemned by the supreme order of the Lord, because they're averse to the nectar activities of the Supreme Personality of God. Guess what they were compared to? Do you remember? I don't know if this was here yesterday, but anyway, this is text 19. Compared to their stool-eating hogs. They gave up the nectar of the holy name and the Lord's glorification. Decided, oh no, I like this taste better. It's all a question of taste. Trying to develop a taste. Yes, Mr. Jonathan.
Also,
can you pass the microphone back to him? You got one in front of you. There you go. Thanks.
My body oneness philosophy, Vaishnava philosophy. My body philosophy, they lose their identity. Vaishnava oneness philosophy, they're able to make their spiritual identity.
And what does the oneness mean for a Vaishnava? What does it mean? You're totally correct, but what does oneness mean?
That you merge back with the Supreme Personality.
And or more clarified is that you become one with the desire. You have the same desire as the Lord. Sorry. Okay. Om Namo, this is today's class now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Namo Vasudevaya.
All right, chant this one together. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Devim Saraswati Vyasam Prachodayam Nastaprayesha Bhagavitsu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Ashtaki. And the translation? For reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very deep conference, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the person God and Narayana, Super Lord, as well as Saraswati, Goddess of learning, and the Srila Srila Prabhupada, the translator. That's written in invisible ink up there, just in case you didn't know that. Okay. By regular attendance classes on Bhagavatam,
by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of God, whose praise and transcendental songs established as an irrevocable fact.
And who can see that invisible ink? What's the qualification of seeing that invisible ink there? Yes, and that gratitude, that's the qualification. Bodhi's gratitude. Okay. And Om Maginati Vedanta Janandana Salakaya Chakshu Tamjena Tasmai Shri Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. I should very kindly force open my eyes for light of knowledge. Therefore, I'm indebted to him, and I beg for service life after life, condemnation, forever and ever. Okay, so our series of verses are from 22 to 26 of chapter 32. 22. Okay. We'll read all our verses first, and then we'll come back to this. This is our focus verse, text 22. Okay, who would like to start reading?
My dear mother, I, therefore, advise you to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of God, for his lotus feet are worth worshiping. Accept this with all devotion and love, for thus you can be situated in transcendental devotional service.
So how would you classify that kind of advice?
The best advice.
Just check. Yeah. Next word, next verse. Can you do it a little louder? Is that louder words? Okay. Thank you.
The exalted devotee's mind becomes equiposed in sensory activities, and he is transcendental to that which is agreeable and not agreeable.
Because of his transcendental intelligence, the pure devotee is equiposed in his vision and sees himself to be uncontaminated by matter. He does not see anything as superior or inferior, and he feels himself elevated to the transcendental platform of being equal in qualities with the Supreme Person.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead alone is complete transcendental knowledge, but according to the different process of understanding, he appears different, either as impersonal Brahman or Paramatma, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or as the Purusha Avatar.
Thank you. So that's 26. Let's stick on 26 for a few minutes, okay? Because that's a really important point that he's making here in text 26. So let's see if you gather the gist of it. So what's the gist of text 26 in your own words, Jonathan? Now with the microphone.
He appears to people who want to have a relationship in a way that they are able to comprehend. Question
They're able
mark.
to comprehend, okay? Due to their qualification, that people are able to comprehend things. People see the Lord in different ways. Anyone else want to expound on it in a different way or got another insight on that? And why do you think that's important? Why do you think this information is important? Right here, he says, okay. According to different processes of understanding, he appears differently. Nishta, oh firm-faithfed one, steady.
Is it because like some people aren't ready for like the full on process of bhakti, kind of at like a different level to
Okay, that's a good point too. And another point is that people see the Lord in different ways. There's different aspects of the Lord. So that one of the reasons why there's so many different philosophies and so many different understandings in the world. And it's not that everyone else is totally wrong and there's only one way, and you know what I mean? It's a very broad, it helps us develop a broad vision of acceptance of other peoples and seeing where people are at, et cetera, and also appreciating the fact that somehow or other, how is it possible that somehow or other we come with this very, very, very complete understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which gives us, enables us to have friendly relationships with all living entities, ultimately. Friendly relationships, because people are on different levels. There's one somewhere, sorry, this is my not exact quote, but there's a verse that explains the mercy of the Vedas. The Vedic literature are more merciful than millions of mothers. So you think of a mother's mercy to her children. She has let's just say she has a large family of 3 kids. That's large in this case. Okay, 3 or 4 kids. They all have different personalities and different interests and different likes and different, things that they're attracted to and things that they're not at all attracted to. And she tries to encourage them all in their own pursuits. So the Vedas in that way, so that's like one of the job descriptions of a mom. Encourage your kids to make the best of what they desire and what they have and what abilities and talents that they have. Vedas are more merciful than millions of mothers because they give some direction for people no matter what level of consciousness. Very high developed consciousness or not so developed consciousness. They give them a process by which that they take to it, they can make progress and their eyes will become more and more opened and their consciousness more expand, etc. So it's interesting because oftentimes people, as Prabhupada says so aptly, with a poor fund of knowledge, with a not so much experience in life, people get discouraged about religious pursuit because there's often quarreling between different religious groups, and there's so many varieties. So then how can who wants to try to figure out which is what? But the Vedas are giving, just like there's different samhitas, there's different books of knowledge for people that are in the mode of ignorance, that they can worship this person or whatever, and make gradual process. Passion, they want to accumulate a lot. Here's the outline of how to get the most from everybody, from the Lord. And here's for the mode of goodness. Here's who and here's what to do. Okay, so let's go to 22, or if you have any other comments so far on this discussion. Okay, go into 22 then. Sanskrit. Tasmat tvam sarvabhavena. Tasmat tvam sarvabhavena. Vajasva parameshtitam. Vajasva parameshtitam. Tadgunashraya ya bhaktya. Tadgunashraya ya bhaktya. Bhajaniya padambujam. Bhajaniya padambujam. Tasmat tvam sarvabhavena. Vajasva parameshtitam. Tadgunashraya ya bhaktya. Bhajaniya padambujam. Please chant. Tasmat tvam sarvabhavena. Vajasva parameshtinam. Tadgunashraya ya bhaktya. Bhajaniya padambujam.
Tasmat tavam savar punekam.
Tasmat tvam sarvabhavena. Vajasva parameshtinam.
Tadguna asya bhaktya.
Tadgunashraya
Pujam.
Bhajaniya padambujam. Very good. Keep trying. Another person?
Tasmat tvam sarvabhavena.
Tasmat
Vajasva parameshtinam.
Vajasva parameshtinam.
Tadgunashraya bhaktya.
Tadgunashraya bhaktya.
Adya param.
Bhajaniya padam bhujam tasmat. Therefore, tasmat, whenever there's a tasmat and there's a therefore, that means he just said a whole bunch of things. And he said, now therefore, this is the conclusion. Tvam, you, Devahuti, Sarva Bhavena, with loving ecstasy, Pajasva, worship, Parameshtinam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Tatguna, qualities of the Lord, Ashrayaya, connected with, Bhaktya, by devotional service, Bhajaniya, worshipable, Pada Ambujam, lotus feet. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. My dear mother, I therefore advise that you take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for his lotus feet are worth worshiping. Accept this with all devotion and love, for thus you can be situated in transcendental devotional service. Let's say it together. My dear mother, I therefore advise that you take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for his lotus feet are worth worshiping. Accept this with all devotion and love, for thus you can be situated in transcendental devotional service. Let me just. So he's recommending that his mother and all of us take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because his lotus feet are worth worshiping. You have any thoughts on that? His lotus feet are worth worshiping. What makes them worth worshiping? Any thoughts or remembrances that come to your mind? Or even comparisons? Because he's saying, therefore. Let me just go back to some of the let me just go back to some of the verses. I'll go back to verse 19. I'm just going to read 19 because he's now saying, now therefore. So he's saying, okay, 18. Such a person says, start. Okay, 16, he says, persons who are too addicted to this material world execute their prescribed duties very nicely with great faith. They daily perform all prescribed duties with attachment to fruitive results. What's the result of a person who's attached to the fruits of their labor? What kind of what's going to happen?
So
Eventually. Yes. Can you expand on it? Bruce. I get 1 point already. Actually, I should get 2 points because I'm 2.
They're gonna have desires, and then those desires are gonna be unmet, and then
Yes, and continuing on that very thoughtful statement, and those desires are going to lead to activities which entangle them more in fruitive activities. That's the trap. It's a trap because they want to be happy for themselves. They want to be nicely situated, this or that. They might want a lot of money. They might want a lot of intelligence. They might want a lot of influence over people. Whatever the nuance of their desire is, it's going to lead to activities that are going to entrap them in results of those activities, which are going to entrap them in further birth and death, which means another birth and more activities to get entangled. It's like a hopeless cycle. And so then he's giving different how they act in different ways. If they're mode of passion, they act this way. But these are personalities that are basing their activities on scriptures, on some information from the scriptures. They're not doing just whimsically anything and everything that they think of, but they're doing things according to the rules and regulations of the Vedas. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he says, rise above the attraction that you have for the Vedas, for the flowery language of the Vedas that are saying, oh, if you do this sacrifice, then you'll be raised to the heavenly planets and the life will be so long and enjoyment will be so much better and such and such. And that's attractive to people, pious people, I think. And but by doing that, they don't get entangled in sinful activities. They get entangled in pious activities, and then there's always a chance of falling down from pious activities. Some get caught, not executed properly or whatever, entangled in sinful activities, but even entangled in pious activities means away from Krishna's lotus feet, away from our real constitutional position as servants of Krishna. And that's the point that he's bringing it to. Okay? So in 22, when he says, therefore, I advise that you take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because his lotus feet are worth worshiping. So why are they worth worshiping? Because by worshiping Krishna's lotus feet, one is awakened to our constitutional position as his servant. And as his servant in the spiritual world, there's no birth, death, existence there. There's no hard struggle for existence there. There's no frustration or anger after, attempting to do something. There's none of that there. Okay, so we'll go to the purport. Okay, now Prabhupada always, a lot of these Sanskrit words, like he's going to talk about parameshtitam, he always tries to bring and compare, because many people, they can read different Sanskrit slokas and stuff, and they're thinking that that the information is pointing to the oneness. But as we were qualifying, what the oneness of a Vaishnava is, oneness and desire with the Lord. We retain our own individuality, but we're trying to living in sync with the Lord's desires and serving Him. But many people think that oneness means, totally merge back into the body of the Lord, and I actually come. So Prabhupada always makes that distinction, which he's going to do right here. The word parameshtitam is sometimes used in connection with Brahma. Parameshtita means the supreme person. As Brahma is the supreme person within this universe, Krishna is the supreme personality in the spiritual world. Lord Kapila advises his mother that she should take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna because it is worthwhile. Taking shelter of the demigods, even those in the highest position, like Brahma and Shiva, is not advised herein. One should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just in that little paragraph, Srila Prabhupada is making various points, but there's always a verse that's backing up a point that he made. So can you pick out any verse? Can you remember any verses, even if you just have even if you remember it in your own words, you don't remember it word for word, the translation of the verse. There was one here, a couple of them there. From Bhagavad Gita, where he's pointing out, he's advising his mother that she should take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because it's worthwhile. And then this is the point. Taking shelter of the demigods, even those in the highest position, like Brahma and Shiva, is not advised here. Any verses you can remember in Bhagavad Gita that might say the same thing? What does Krishna say about worshiping the demigods in the Bhagavad Gita? Yes.
Okay, I don't know if this is from the Bhagavad Gita specifically, but like the analogy is that you water the leaves instead of watering the tree.
Good point. Yes. Okay. Gives that example. And so now tell me what that example means.
It's like you can satisfy the demigods as to much of your ability, but they they won't give you what the Supreme Personality of Godhead is offering,
Okay.
because they offer different things.
Okay. All right. That's a good point. Thank you. Nathan.
It's kind of related. In the beginning, we give respect to like Saraswati and other demigods. So where's that line?
Okay, hold on a second. Hold that thought. Let's go right here, and then we'll come back to that, okay? Because that's a good question to talk about. Jonathan, are you going to clarify things, or are you going to add to the mix?
No, I'm not going to add. I'm going to
Okay, good.
answer.
Okay, please do.
With demigod worship, that you'd be able to be elevated to heavenly planets, higher planets, but it's still a temporary position.
Yes.
Eventually, you have to come back down
Yes.
to.
Yes. The worship of the demigods, the fruits are limited and temporary, Krishna says. They're limited. They're within the material world. Might be higher, might be better situated, it might appear that it's progress, but it doesn't get you out of this cycle of birth and death. Ultimately, even if your life is 10 million years long, which is a possibility in higher planets, still it's only 10 million years long, and it eventually has to come down. Now back to the quick little point about your example of watering the root of the tree. So one might try to want to serve humanity by feeding the poor and giving medical treatment to those that need it, and this one and that one, like watering the leaves of a tree. But if you pour water on the root of all existence is the Supreme Lord. It's important to understand that that's what it's talking about. Giving respect to the Lord, then all the leaves and branches become nourished automatically. Okay, and then now your question about Saraswati. We give respect to the goddess Saraswati. So what's the difference? Where's the line drawn? It's not that we disrespect the demigods. That's a very important point. Although Krishna says worship of the demigods is for less intelligent people, it doesn't mean that we disrespect the demigods, because the demigods are any person in an elevated position, and that's the point. They're in an elevated position due to what? Due to their pious activities. And they're elevated to positions of administrators because they have some bhakti. They have bhakti. It's called sakama. They have bhakti with material desires, but they have bhakti. And a devotee eventually wants to come to the point. We say it really fast as if we're free from desires. We're not exactly free from material desires yet anyway, but we're on the path to get there, and we're aspiring for that goal. We've heard about material desires and trying to fulfill them and the difficulty that involves. And we've heard about pure spiritual desires, only desiring Krishna's service, and we're aspiring for that. So with desire, the demigods are pious personalities who, due to their accumulation of piety and bhakti, Krishna has appointed them as administrators in the universe. So a devotee should give respect to the demigods, but understanding their position, that they're not the supreme. So Saraswati, so it's not that a devotee prays the goddess Saraswati for material education, but for divine inspiration. So then there's also there's two sets of demigods. Not that I want to get too technical, but there's two sets of demigods. There's the ones that rule over the material verses, and the ones that are in the spiritual world, the divine demigods, like Divya Saraswati. She's only going to give spiritual benedictions. Okay. All right. Next paragraph. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Follow those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires, surrender unto the demigod. Follow the particular regulations. The next verse says they get the results of those activities. So okay, so I can devote himself to, and then he says very quickly that's another reason that people like to worship the demigods too, is because relatively speaking, very quickly they get the results of their endeavors, and therefore they like it better. So Krishna takes a little while before. Wants to make sure you're really totally into it. Okay, thank you. Sarva bhavena means in all loving ecstasy. Bhava is the preliminary stage of elevation before the attainment of pure love of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his his analyzation of the different stages of love of Godhead, he says that this bhava stage is the sprouting of the plant of bhakti, bhava, but only two little leaves of sprouting, just sprouts, and those are. Anyway, so bhava is the stage before prema, and when you think of a person that's often cited in Bhagavatam that attained to the Baba stage and then had a little difficulty even. He was on the stage of love. Bharat Maharaj, yeah, Bharat Maharaj. He actually was very advanced. He was a great Raja, Rishi, a great saintly king, and not a very, he wasn't old, he was young age. He renounced the kingdom, went to the forest to focus only on spiritual life, but came attached. And he was, when he was doing his sadhana, when he was doing his practices, he was actually shedding tears of love. He was actually in the stage of Baba, very elevated. But that's one of the warnings that, that even at that elevated stage, there's still, one has to be cautious. There's a chance, but then prema comes, then there's no chance. Okay. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhuta Bhava Samanvita. One who has attained the stage of Bhava can accept the lotus feet of Lord Krishna as worshipable. This is also advised here by Lord Kapila to his mother. Also significant in this verse is the phrase Tad Gunasya Gunashraya Bhaktya. This means that discharging devotional service unto Krishna is transcendental. It is not material activity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Those who engage in devotional service are accepted to be situated in the spiritual kingdom. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. They at once become situated in the transcendental kingdom. Any thoughts on that? Comments or questions or doubts on that paragraph? Because it's not saying it's even indicating that even devotees that are aspiring, for just neophyte devotees, it says if we're worshiping Krishna's lotus feet, one who has attained the stage of Bhava can accept the lotus feet of Lord Krishna as worshipable. This is also advised here by Lord Kapila to his mother. Also significant in this verse is the phrase Tat Gunashraya Bhaktya. This means that by discharging devotional service unto Krishna is transcendental. It is not material activities. So this is an important point, an important distinction in the process of devotional service, even in our beginning stages, that our attempts to worship Krishna's lotus feet and our attempts to remember the orders of the spiritual master, our attempts to hear and chant of Krishna's glories, these are very potent and very transcendental activities, and on a whole nother level of, you're welcome to come in, and on a whole nother level of purification, a whole idea of purification. It is not material activity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Those who engage in devotional service are accepted to be situated in the spiritual kingdom. Welcome to the spiritual kingdom. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. They at once become situated in the transcendental kingdom. So also we can understand, yes, let me just say that one sentence and then we can also understand from this that there are different, especially as a neophyte, we are elevated or transported, you could say almost, to a very elevated position, but there are degrees of our understanding of that too. We're not like totally aware of what's going on so far. Yes, dear, you have a comment or question? I think she switched it on.
This is
Okay.
I guess I'm trying to really figure out what is the actual meaning of praying to his lotus feet, because
I recently read this rising this morning, Canto 1, I think chapter 30. I forgot the actual line, but basically like this form that we have is not the form that Krishna has is not his form, and so it's a form for ignorance for people who are not aware of the spiritual reality of Krishna. So to combine our form with his form is kind of like showing that we kind of are one, but I want to know the actual meaning of praying to his lotus feet, because it's like if we go to our masters and we
If we
pray
go to,
our masters, a master.
okay, okay,
If we go to a master, a guru, and we pray to their feet, um, wouldn't that be um, Krishna that is within their physical being?
okay. Let me try to clarify a few points. Okay, so Krishna's form is 100% transcendental all the time. Okay, we, a person seeing that, even in his deity form, we might not be realized, we might not be on the level at our present moment to see that it's totally transcendental all the time. It's not matter. It's not, it's not full of blood, pus, and stool and urine. His form. His form is transcendental. His form is made up of entirely of Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. So just it's easy for me to say that, but for me to comprehend that, what is eternity, knowledge, and bliss? How does that make a form? Well, it's beyond my ability to understand that at this stage, but I've heard it many times, and I can accept that it's making a distinction. My form, it's got skin covering and hairs and veins sticking out all over the place, etc., etc. Krishna's form might look, he has an arm, he has a leg, etc., etc. Might look like there's blood and pus and stool in there, but it's not made of those things at all. Okay, so taking shelter of his lotus feet. Okay, back a little bit. So that every part of his form is potent, just like in Lord Brahma, in one of his prayers, he's saying that Krishna's all his senses are interchangeable. Like it's not that he eats with his hands and his mouth only. He can eat with his eyes, and that's why we offer our food to Krishna, because by him hearing the prayers that are recited, love, he's accepting that offering. So his senses are interchangeable. He can see with his hands and feet. It's not limited like our eyes have a certain function, our tongue has a function, etc., etc. Not interchangeable. His because it's eternity, knowledge, and bliss. It's not limited like ours. It's limited. Now then to the point of taking shelter of his lotus feet means that Krishna can give protection and shelter with any quote unquote part of his body. Even his glance. And that's one of the things about seeing the deity form of the Lord, getting the glance of the Lord. We're thinking, I'm seeing the Lord. I'm coming, call it darshan, come in to see the Lord. But actually, darshan, seeing the Lord, means the Lord is seeing us. And one of the results of the Lord seeing us is that we sometimes and oftentimes get a desire to serve the Lord. That's coming from him. He's glancing at us, and therefore we're getting a desire to serve. So, taking shelter, so feet in our mundane conception, feet are like not like most ecstatic part of the body. A lot of hard work, they get they're really dirty, dusty, this and that, sometimes smelly, etc., whatever. They're not like it's not that a person is attracted to someone else under normal circumstances because their feet for feet seen by one friend. It doesn't usually happen like that, right? But Krishna's feet are so powerful, and they're able to give shelter, protection for in any way. So that's what it talks about. Even what would appear, it would appear to a mundaner that, what do you're kicking things with your foot, everything you disregard, even your shoes, you don't take care. A lot of people don't take very good care of their shoes. Stick it. There can be disregarded very easily, but Krishna's lotus feet it's an understanding that I can get total shelter there in any circumstance of life. He can. Therefore, if I'm situated in a position of service, which is like saying at his lotus feet, if I'm situated in a position of willing to serve the Lord under any circumstance, then I'm like safely situated under his lotus feet. And for someone to be safely situated in the Lord's embrace or in the Lord's protection means that in any circumstance, he's looking out for my welfare. So it gives a confidence and an assurance for the devotees that I can get protection from the Lord. I can get love and acceptance from the Lord. I can get relief from all my petty anxieties, etc., by taking shelter of the Lord. But not just me. I can't be that type of answer, but by my giving everything to the Lord, He will take care. And there's so many instances of how He protects His devotion. Just like if we take the very basic example of Arjuna on the battle of Kshetra, right? So he had a huge responsibility. In fact, it's often said that the only reason that Yudhishthira Maharaj was confident going into the battlefield because Arjuna was such a capable warrior. He knew that with Arjuna's capabilities, he could hold hundreds of millions of army soldiers on the Duryodhana's side. Okay, and so, but Arjuna, being confident of his protection by Krishna, still had a lot of anxiety. He still had a lot of endeavor that he had to make. It wasn't handed to him on a platter. Okay, I'm going to just breathe out. Krishna's not going to say, okay, I'm just going to breathe out over the soldiers and half of them are going to die here. So Arjuna had endeavor. He had to depend on Krishna, and he had to do the most he could do. And it wasn't always clear. It wasn't always clear. Do it like this. How is he going to defeat? He had to figure out how he's going to defeat Bhishma, how he's going to defeat Karna. That's a story. But because he had taken shelter of Krishna, in earnestness, Krishna provided the intelligence and the ability and the protection in every circumstance, every trial and tribulation. And that's what it's referring to, taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, depending fully on his protection, his love, and his desires. So that ultimately it might seem like for example, if you just analyze Arjuna's position, well, that was a pretty heavy duty position for Arjuna. It wasn't always comfortable, it wasn't always easy, and this and that. And it didn't even look like it was always for Arjuna's benefit, but ultimately it was. So for us to follow in the footsteps like that, or the path that Arjuna chalked out, but he took shelter of Krishna, he made tremendous amount of endeavor, and he was guided by the Lord. So that's a position that we aspire for, different ways, not necessarily exactly on a battlefield like that, but that position of feeling confident in Krishna's protection. That anything might happen, anything can happen. Even this material body might be destroyed. I'm not going to destroy it. It's not over at the end of this life. I'm going to continue. The real me, the soul, is going to continue on in service to the Lord. That's how I've dedicated my life. So it's as you continue your reading and your chanting and everything, you'll get different nuances of that, what that taking shelter with lotus feet. Does anyone want to add something? Yes, dear. If you-
When I think of Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna.
I wasn't here for class, but thank you.
Thanks.
When I think of taking shelter, it's more of like humility and surrender.
Uh-huh.
And that surrender is really hard because we are on a different type of battlefield, and we are in a different type of position than Arjuna, but at the same time we have the anxieties and all the things. And so when I think of taking shelter of Krishna, literally surrender, literally, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but that surrender and that humility, Krishna will give you better, you know. So that's
Yeah.
what I just wanted to add that to.
Thank you, because that's a practical application point. You know, we at first it might seem very, very difficult. And what's the difficulty? The difficulty is surrendering our false conception of ourselves that we're independent. That's our difficulty. We're thinking, I can surrender to Krishna or not surrender to Krishna. It won't make any difference. That's like illusion, because it does. It makes a whole bunch of difference, you know, because we're thinking, I'm going to do it on my own. You know, I mean, we can make, and many people are making their attempts to do it on their own. What are they getting? They're getting birth, death, old age, disease over and over and over again in different frustrations and anger after, you know, different attempts, etc., etc. But when one surrenders to Krishna, the idea, as you were saying, the idea is that to Krishna's will, whatever happens, just like we might be having a certain tension in our life, you know, or problem or whatever, some difficulty in our life, you might be thinking how we can overcome it. Well, if my problem is money, well, if I get this job or that, make my own, whatever. But if I surrender to Krishna, if I surrender to Krishna and engage in the service, everything will be taken care of. Now that's a big leap of faith for someone starting in. But but note how you get opportunities to do that gradually in your day-to-day life here. And those little incidences of someone asks you to do something that you might not want to do. Well, that's a minor little thing, right? Can you clean the pots today? The guy's sick and you need it. But you clean the pots, okay? You know, have you had that happen to you, Jonathan? Is that why you're making voices? Anyway, or something that you're asked to do something that you might not like to do, but you surrender to Krishna, you do it, and this and that, and you found, oh, it wasn't so bad after all. So this is what I'm saying, these little small incidences in our life, it's good to remember them. They're building blocks, they're strength, they're faith building blocks to say, just like we hear, oh, you're not your body. But that's a really high level of realization, but we're practicing on different levels how to get there. Someone, yeah, John.
Practical, a practical surrender to Krishna is taking up ashram, and that's when I came back from my where I was, and that was what they asked me to do was wash the dishes, and I was already washing dishes at a job making a lot of money actually, and doing side gigs and kind of building a life the way that I wanted. I was asked to come Krishna house and be the dishwasher, and I remember making that leap of faith. Like instead of washing dishes for me, you know, I'm gonna wash dishes for Krishna, and I surrendered my state of life and position that I was in to come to Gainesville.
Nice practical, yeah, and there's joy in that, isn't there? There's joy in that. Okay, I'll go to the last paragraph. I think it's a long one. Okay, last paragraph. Devotional service and full Krishna consciousness is the only means for attaining the highest perfection of life for the human being. That's a heavy statement. Devotional service and full Krishna consciousness is the only means for attaining the highest perfection of life for the human being. This is recommended herein by Lord Kapila to his mother. Bhakti is therefore nirguna, free from all tinges of material quality. Although the discharge of devotional service appears to be like material activities like washing pots. It looks like it's the same thing. It's different. It is never saguna or contaminated by material qualities. Tadguna shrayaya means that Lord Krishna's transcendental qualities are so sublime, there is no need to divert one's attention to any other activity. His behavior with the devotees is so exalted that a devotee need not try to divert his attention to any other worship. It is said that the demoniac Putana, this is a great example. It is said that the demoniac Putana came to kill Krishna by poisoning him. Now that's not a person you'd like to make your best friend, right? The person who's coming to kill you and think, oh yeah, let me wish you well. No, but that's what Krishna did. Okay. But because Krishna was pleased to suck her breast, she was given the same position as his mother. Now that's quite amazing right there. Whole Bakiyam kind of kala stupdam. That's sort of it. How can I take shelter of anyone who's more merciful than Krishna? There's no one more merciful than Krishna. And that's this example of Putana is cited here in that verse. That she's coming, her whole purpose, not a shadow of a doubt, her whole purpose was to kill. And yet Krishna said, oh, look, she's offering her breast. A mother does that. She's just like her mother. Somehow or other, he was able to see that. And because of that attempt, because she offered her breast to the Lord and Krishna accepted it as if a loving gesture from a mother, he totally disregarded the poison aspect of it. So when he sucked her life out, because that's how potent he is, he also awarded her with a position like that of a mother. Amazing, huh? Let's see. Devotees pray, therefore, that if a demon who wanted to kill Krishna gets such an exalted position, why should they go to anyone other than Krishna for their worshipful attachment? There are two kinds of religious activities, one for material advancement, and the other for spiritual advancement. By taking shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna, one is endowed with both kinds of prosperity, material and spiritual. Why then should one go to any demigod? Hare Krishna. Everything comes. Now, it's also a question of perceiving things in the proper way, because you could say, well, a lot of devotees, they appear quite poor. They don't all appear very materially prosperous. But the point that's being given is that everything is being provided by the Lord, and they're satisfied with their position. They're satisfied with whatever the Lord wants to give, because He's giving it. He's giving it, and whether one is, Brari the hunter. He was half killing animals, or he was a hunter, obviously, and that's how he made his living. But the way that he would kill the animals, he also enjoyed in just their pain, their painful expression, their writhing in pain. He enjoyed that. And when Narada Muni walked through the forest, saw him and this and that, he wanted to rectify that errant mentality. He said, you just end up suffering so much for this. He said, how much? So then Rari said, but this is the way I've been taught. This is what I should do. This is what I've been taught from my father. I just grew up like this. He said, Narada says, well, first break your bow. And then I'll take care of you. And so Rari felt a ray of hope there with his association with Narada Muni and took that leap of faith, broke his bow, his means of livelihood. And Narada said, just chant Hare Krishna, and I'll arrange that you get enough to eat. And not only did he get enough to eat, but when Narada came to visit him again, he said, you send it too much. You don't have to send this much. He's getting more than necessary. So Krishna's providing everything. We need to develop also an attitude of appreciation for what he's providing, and an acceptance for even sometimes the difficulties that might be there. He's providing them, just a token. I could go on and on, but we're already 10 minutes over. Sorry. But just another little quick thing at the end, because this is important to tie it into Lord Brahma's prayer, the 10th canto, chapter 14, verse 8, 10:14:8. Lord Brahma says that no matter what happens to me, all the good things in my life, I'm offering my respectful obeisances and gratitude. And then when those bad things or apparently bad things that are happening, I'm also offering my respectful gratitude to the Lord. Because the bad things, I know I deserve worse. But Krishna's just giving me a little token of what I deserve. Little fraction of a minuscule part of what I deserve. And then when the good things happen, I also know I don't deserve that either. Krishna's very kindly that also. So in other words, the devotee is always feeling that out of Krishna's kindness, he's giving everything, good things and the bad things, and helps one develop a loving attitude more and more. Any quick comments or questions or anything else one would like to add? Except for your favorite prayer of the day, maybe? Okay. Thank you very kindly. Hare Krishna. Prasade Govinde Namo Brahmani Vaishno Swabham Punya Sambhajan
Fortune versus the faith, Mahaprasad, spiritual stimulants, the deity of Shri Govinda, Supreme Personality, the transcendental Krishna God, and the Vaishnavas, Bhagavan Mahaprasad.